for that very comprehensive introduction. Definitely made me sound a bit better than I think my real life is. Today I want to talk about the invisible architecture of travel. And what I mean by that is I want to delve into the psychology of travel. Often when we talk about innovation, it's very easy to think of innovation as technology and what's next. And look, I don't want to sound like a Luddite. I'm in the world of technology. In fact, it so happens, totally by chance, that when Gilad was looking at the list of people speaking at this event, our team were actually in Seattle with his wife's company, Lisa Bridge. She runs a jeweler in Seattle and along that coastline in the US, training her creative team in how to use AI to enhance creativity. So I'm a believer in AI, but I also think that we need to think about human psychology and how sort of pleasure is built. 2 weeks ago, I was on a panel at Arabian Travel Market with Barbara Muckerman. She runs Kopinski. And we were asked a bit of a curveball question at the end of the panel. What's a hospitality experience that's reshaped your perspective on things? And it was one of those questions that I just sort of slightly startled me. It sort of took me aback. And the first thing that instinctively came out of my mouth was this date I'd been on 15 years ago to a restaurant in London called Dans le Noir. And it's a restaurant where you're served your food in darkness by blind waiters. Right? And you sort of emerge from this restaurant thinking that you've had sort of filet mignon, and it turns out to sort of be aubergine and grated carrot. And I just remember this experience, just having this sort of penny drop moment. Sort of food is really just a combination of flavor and texture. You know, all the pleasures in this world are built of context and association. Shakespeare put it well, the OG, all that time ago. Nothing in this world is good or bad. Thinking makes it so. This is particularly important to be reminded of in travel today. You can't quantify the value of your experience. I could be standing here having a gripping time, and you could be sitting there having a terrible time, but we're in the same room. Right, now to explore this theme a little bit further, I want to zoom out. Today's luxury traveler is not one thing. 20 years ago, the luxury traveler existed in the preserve of the luxury world, very siloed. Today, we have a portfolio of identities. When I go traveling with my family, I'll stay in an Oman resort. When I go with my buddies, I'm very happy to go and stay in hostels because it provides me a conduit into the party, caters to the hedonistic side of my life that's important to me. I thought this email that I received from a client recently sort of perfectly summed it up. In his footer, he lists all of the places that he's sort of recently traveled to. We almost relate more to our experiences. We see our experiences as stories that serve as a form of social capital. They're more self-defining than perhaps in certain cases where we even come from. Now, we all know that we've moved from this sort of material to experience economy. It's been spoken of many times. It's come up today a few times too. The truth is, we've moved from this material to this experience economy because we can sort of capture our experiences today and wear them as a badge of honor. Where once we purchased things and we displayed our status through our possessions, now we can do it through our experiences, to the point where there are companies like Mirrell who will actually follow you around and make a documentary about the experiences you have. We're proud of these things. They become self-defining in an age of abundance. And, you know, we kind of got more free cash as well. I remember having a conversation with Robin Chadha. He was the founder of Citizen M, or the co-founder with his father, Ratan. And he said he was sitting in Monaco having dinner, and the pilots from his Learjet were like dining behind him, and they ordered a bottle of wine that was so eye-wateringly expensive, he sold his plane the next day. We started the process of it anyway. Where once we had these big capital expenditures, we can now plug in to services like Aero, you can subscribe to your car, you can use platforms like Rent the Runway to subscribe to your haute couture. We're moving from ownership to subscription. And so while we've got this amazing market, right, $1.38 trillion, 50% compound annual growth, right, actually, and by the way, sort of 10% of that is being driven by those who earn, who have a net worth of over $30 million. We've also got a third of it coming from people who are non-millionaires. It's a wide market, right? And it's come up already today. The high net worth, the luxury customer is not one thing. So growth is great, right? But with growth comes lots of noise. Right? But with noise comes homogenization. These 9 images are all from different brands who compete for the same customer. I mean, they look exactly the same. The way in which we qualify value, the way in which we figure out if something is appropriate for us, is reductive qualification. When you're in a brand, you have this amazing sensorial world, this beautiful hotel, this amazing travel experience. You have first-hand experience of it. You're just a tab in a browser to the end client. Right? When I'm trying to book a holiday, I don't look at the color of the sea. I look at the quality of the light switch. I'm looking at the flooring, trying to figure out if the other details will marry with my perception of what I believe quality is. We've got to have the confidence to lead with the detail today. The average customer has 250,000 micro moments and 45 interactions before they make a decision. Right? And it's very easy when there's this much noise to think we got to shout louder. If we shout louder, we can influence thought, and if we influence thought, we can get people to do something. But Benjamin Franklin said it well all that time ago. Right? If you want someone to like you, get them to do you a favor. If they do you the favor, they'll post-rationalize they must have quite liked you to have done you the favor to begin with. Right? If you get your clients to do something, they'll ensure there's a congruence between their thoughts, beliefs, and actions. Right? This is kind of what cognitive behavioral therapy is based on. Where does the next yes come from? So, this market is innovative. We're traveling further afield. We're going to space. It will be a $10 billion industry by 2030. Right? Tom Marchant, a good friend of mine, put it well. It's a dramatic escapism. We're going bigger and bigger. But what we're really trying to do is find something that sits deeper within. We're trying to find a point of personal transformation and self-expression. So look, I think it's important to innovate around the product. Right? But really, we need to think about how we make people feel about the choices they make. Right? Joy is based on a sense of opportunity cost, what you compare how you could have spent your time to something else. It's really important to remember that. What's the before and after? Right? Your expectations impact experience. There's some really basic behavioral experiments that have been done to prove this. When a chocolate cake is labeled satin chocolate cake, people rate it 15% more tasty than one that's just called chocolate cake. Right? When you hear a cork in the background, your wine tastes 20% more full-bodied. It's wild, right? Pleasure's built in the mind. The truth is, in the words of the great philosophers like Sun Lao, centuries and centuries ago, to say I don't have time is really to say I don't want to. Yet, we're optimizing everything to death. We're optimizing the joy and serendipity and happenstance, not just out of how we communicate, but out of life. The problem is, if we make things too easy, if there's no arc, there's no tension, right? There's no story. And we're hardwired for the campfire. Right? Yes, the arc of the stories that we tell people, but also the storyboard that we draw people through. The artist rules his subjects by turning them into accomplices. I think this is the number one challenge we all need to think of in this world that is becoming more commoditized, and that is a bigger opportunity for luxury. The first thing to think about is what is the emotion in your brand? What's the human spirit of your brand? Too often, brands rest on the laurels of history and heritage. History and heritage is not enough. Revisit your founding spirit. Right? Coco Chanel was an orphan who dressed to manifest her future personality. Astor was so obsessed with opulence, he actually gold-plated the plumbing. No joke. Adrian Zecker, when he made Amman Resorts, it was an extension of his living room, right, for his friends and family first, a commercial enterprise second. I was doing a project for Bugatti some time ago, and I was going through the archives, and someone tried to return a Bugatti because the brakes failed, and he told him to fuck off because he made cars to go, not to stop. So, like, where's the defiance? Where's the maverick spirit? All luxury brands were innovators. We need to revisit this now. It's more important than it's ever been. The second is, where's the intellectual complement in how you message? Right, we tend to just try and describe how we want people to feel. Be suggestive. A 3-year-old boy saluting at his father's funeral. A little bit morbid, I apologize, but there to try and make a point. Instead, we use language like this in our industry, where dreams come true, heaven on earth, one-of-a-kind service, holiday experiences, magic, heaven, paradise. I bet everyone has been guilty of some of these. Just a couple of behavioral principles that I think are important to highlight. We are bombarded with choice today. Right? 78% of high net worths have choice anxiety because they can have anything, right? So it's like, how do you use your time in the most effective way? How do you figure out if something is for you? 24 jams set up in a stall on the side of a road, only 1.5% of people purchased. 6 jams, 16% of people purchased. Give people less and they'll make an easier choice. Think about that in the context of, I don't know, a spa menu. The second is, with this world of AI where we're beginning to optimize operations in the back office, you've got to show people you're investing effort in the process. When you see those airline websites or price aggregation sites with progress bars that are scraping data and seem like they're doing something in the background, it's fake. Right? It's a 12% increase in conversion when it looks like something's happening in the background. The whole world of locksmithery has to pretend that it takes an hour to unlock your door when you lock yourself out, because people were so dejected by the fact that with technology you end up paying a locksmith $400 for 2 minutes, which is actually what it takes. A really important behavioral principle is how you help people self-identify. White picket fence America. Homeowners were asked to put a sign up in their front yard asking people to drive carefully. Pretty much no one agreed to put the sign up. It was like an ugly sign. Another cohort were asked to put a sticker in the back of their car saying, please drive more slowly. And they were then asked 2 weeks later to put a sign up in their front yard. 75% of people put the sign up. Why? Because in their minds, they'd become one of those people who asked people to drive more slowly. Think about this in the context of how you push people to experience things that are outside of their comfort zone. Because if you can get them to do something that's daring and different, if you can get them to do something that breaks their paradigm of what they expect a luxury travel experience to be, the value exchange that you create with them will be one that breeds long-term loyalty. How do we get people to do something differently and think about behavioral language? A major hotel group wanted to get people to reuse their towels. So they put a message in all the rooms saying, please reuse your towels for environmental reasons. Roughly 10% of people reuse the towels. They then rephrased the message to say, most people reuse their towels. There was a 15% increase on that 10%. We're talking hundreds of thousands of gallons of water. A third message, most people in this room reuse their towels. Another 10%. We're talking huge variances in behavior, simply based on language and messaging. And lastly, and this is perhaps my biggest bugbear, is like transactional loyalty. Loyalty programs often work against companies by commoditizing everything that they offer. Right, Dishoom, which is a chain of brilliant Indian restaurants in the UK. The founder is actually on our podcast. It's a fascinating listen. Right. They allow those who dined with them to roll some dice at the end of their meal, and if they get it like a double six, they get the meal for free. That's actually, on average, a 16.7% discount. But trust me, people love it far more than getting some points. So, we've got to think about what a travel experience really is. It's the sum of every interaction. Right? The role that you play in delivering expectation before an experience, the role you play in what happens after an experience, and the positive affirmations and the reflection that you inspire in your clients, that's as much a part of the objective joy of the experience as the product itself. Has anybody seen this experiment where participants are asked to count the number of passes in an NBA game? Has anyone seen this experiment? It's kind of like pop psychology experiment. Well, people sort of respond, 10 passes, sort of 11 passes, 12 passes. They then play the same video again to the same people, and they ask if anyone's noticed that there's an 11-foot mascot dressed as an ape walking through the game, and no one's noticed it. Right? We see the things that we're told to look for. Right? Our brands are a point of navigation. They help us organize our felt experience. So in today's world, like technology disruption, and we're all anxious, and we're trying to keep up with the Joneses and figure out what's next, and what are we going to do that's going to help us have cut through in the market? We need to ask some basic questions. Are we writing the right story? Are we evoking the correct emotion? Are we encouraging the types of behaviors that we believe are true for the type of client profile that we're after? Are we asking the right questions? In the words of the highly alluring Margot Robbie, sometimes it's the feeling of anticipation over the thing itself that is the most profound aspect of our felt experience. Innovation is not technology alone. It's important, and we need to optimize using technology. Innovation is really about how we feel about things. Thank you very much.